Top 3 origins of rock and roll oldies but goodies. Number 1. Concentration Moon. For the irreverent prankster Frank Zappa, 1940 to 1993, sacred cows did not exist. Any sort of hypocrisy, pretentiousness, humbug, or other tomfoolery was an acceptable target for his lyrics, as suggested by the Mothers of Invention's album We're Only in It for the Money, 1968, the cover of which is itself a parody of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album, 1967. During the 1960s and 1970s, Zappa saw problems and dangers on both the side of the conservative state and on the side of its freewheeling challengers. The album does not seek to strike a balance or compromise between them as much as it points out the limitations and perils of both. Each of the songs in the album targets some aspect of the counterculture, or the hippie lifestyle, or the mainstream culture against which it supposedly rebels. Who Needs the Peace Corps attacks phony hippies. Mom and Dad indicts social authorities such as police and government officials, but also parents. Bowtie Daddy satirizes absentee workaholic fathers. Although Harry, You're a Beast has been seen as misogynistic, it can also be viewed as a condemnation of sexist attitudes and male privilege. Other songs assail other shortcomings and abuses of both the dominant culture and the counterculture. One of these songs is Concentration Moon, which is based on the conspiracy theory that President Ronald Reagan, 1911 to 2004, planned to incarcerate hippies in the camps that were used to imprison Japanese American citizens during World War II. According to Kelly Fisher Lowe, author of the words and music of Frank Zappa, the song tells this story in a silly, beer hall sing-along style, complete with piano-playing stylings and a pseudo-brass band playing in the background. This song, which is directed against the creeping authoritarianism of the state that Zappa feared he was witnessing, is a direct condemnation of such tactics, which counter every part of Zappa's ideological makeup. Number 2. I Want to Hold Your Hand. The Beatles would rock the world with songs like Michelle, 1965, Nowhere Man, 1966, Eleanor Rigby, 1966, Penny Lane, 1967, Strawberry Fields Forever, 1967, All You Need Is Love, 1967, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, 1967, Lady Madonna, 1968, Hey Jude, 1968, Revolution, 1968, Get Back, 1969, A Day in the Life, 1978, and a host of other hits. The band's 10-year career began with a simple song though, I Want to Hold Your Hand, released in England in 1960. What's the story behind the song that launched the career of one of the most famous rock and roll groups of all time? According to the Billboard Book of Number 1 Hits by Fred Bronson, although the Beatles were a hit in England as late as 1963, the band just didn't seem, to their manager Brian Epstein, 1934 to 1967, to be gaining any traction in the United States. Epstein had been trying to generate some interest in the band with Capitol Records, but the company's executives saw no future for the mop heads in the United States. We don't think the Beatles will do anything in this market, they told him, as they passed on the offer of releasing the band's singles. Paul McCartney and John Lennon, 1940 to 1980, who had written "I Want to Hold Your Hand" in the basement of the home of McCartney's girlfriend, actress Jane Asher, wrote it specifically for American release, giving it a gospel sound. Epstein took a demo copy to New York the day after the Beatles had given a command performance for the Queen Mother. Capitol's Director of Eastern Operations, Brown Meggs, 1930 to 1997, liked what he heard and scheduled a January 13, 1964, release of the song. During the trip, the manager also met with a talent scout, who arranged for the band to play on 2 American telecasts. However, WWDC Radio in Washington, D.C., beat both the record company and NBC's The Jack Paar program to the punch, broadcasting a copy of "I Want to Hold Your Hand" that the station had acquired from a BOAC flight attendant. Public response was overwhelmingly favorable, and Capitol changed the release date to December 26. The recording shot to the top of the charts, selling 15 million copies worldwide. The Beatles had finally become an overnight success in the United States. Number 3. I Will Always Love You. The many projects and pursuits of multi-talented country music great Dolly Parton include singing, playing musical instruments, and writing songs, one of which, "I Will Always Love You," won acclaim not only for her, but also for Whitney Houston, 1963 to 2012, the latter's version of the hit being preferred by many, including Parton herself. Composed as a farewell song for Porter Wagoner, 1927 to 2007, Parton's mentor and business partner, after Parton struck out on her own at age 28, the song did well when she sang it in 1972, but she must have known for certain what a huge hit she had on her hands when Elvis Presley, 1935 to 1977, asked her permission to record his version of her song. Unfortunately, Presley's manager, Tom Parker, 1909 to 1997, presented terms that would be a deal-breaker for Parton, insisting that Presley take half the publishing. A decade later, in 1982, Parton re-recorded the song, and it again topped the charts. 10 years later, it shot to the top again, and stayed there for months, when Whitney Houston, putting a romantic spin on the lyrics, sang the song on the soundtrack of The Bodyguard, in which she starred, opposite Kevin Costner.